Hi, folks. Welcome back. So, I've been a heavy user of agents for a while now, not just coding agents, but agents in general, just to do all my work. And there's plenty of videos back on the channel about that. And I'm beginning to bump up against some walls when it comes to human agent interaction. So, I want to riff on those issues a little bit in this video and share some thoughts on what might actually solve these issues. So to start with, look at the direction in which Agent UI is going. This is the recently released Cursor 3.0, and this is what the UI looks like. The huge selling point is that you can manage tons of agents all in one UI, and they can be local or in the cloud, and they can move back and forth. You can run all these agents in parallel. But this is what the UI looks like. This is what Claude Code looks like. And it's not just the agents. If you look at a ton of SaaS products, this is what they have started to look like the author says over here. Linear, Post Hog, Attio, they all have this very chat GPT like interface, which is chat is front and center, and then maybe in a sidebar you get a historical look at all your previous chats. And this kind of UI has a low floor, but I would claim it also has a fairly low ceiling. What I mean by that is it makes it easy to get into agents. But the problem is that once you do a lot of your work or even all your work with agents, you run into a ceiling. And what is that ceiling? So let me shift gears a little bit to explain what the problem is. For the longest time, I've been a huge fan of this concept called narrating your work. And the idea is very simple. All it means is that you keep synthesized notes of the things you've been working on. So it's a work log essentially. Very simple idea. And I was first exposed to this concept when I started working at Google. They had this notion called snippets. They had an internal tool, I think they still do, where engineers would post weekly snippets of the work they had done that week. And most engineers would just drop a few bullet points, but then once in a while, there were these 3, 4, 5 engineers, you know who you are, who would put in these mini essays in their snippets. And I got so much value and connection out of it. These were engineers in different parts of the company. It was parasocial in the sense that I didn't work with them or meet them in real life. But just reading these mini essays, these subjective synthesized views of what they were working on, what was working, what wasn't working, what their plans were, it just gave me such a deep insight into the kinds of work they were doing. And it really made me feel a kinship with them. And that was what encouraged me to keep up my snippet writing habit as well. And this really serves two audiences. The primary consumer of narrating your work is you yourself because you're sense making over all this mountain of work that you did. When you're knee deep in the work, you lose sight of the forest for the trees. And at the end of the week, if you take a few minutes to pause and write down what you did and reflect on it and synthesize some higher level lessons for it, that is just incredibly valuable. But then the second audience is just other random people, either inside the company or if it's public out on the web, coming by and reading that stuff and learning from it and getting value from it. So I think this notion, narrate your work, is a very important idea. And I suppose that's what I'm doing with my blog and my YouTube channel. All right, so that was a somewhat long tangent, but the point I'm trying to make is that all these agent UIs make it really difficult to make sense of all the mountains of work that you have done with your agents. You get so much more done. You cover 10 miles in a day where you would have covered just 1 mile without agents. But at the end of the day or end of the week, you're left with this very disoriented feeling because you've done so much work. But if you try to think back on what you did, how much you did, what did you actually accomplish, what's the higher level picture, it's really hard to make sense of all that work. And you really need that so that you can then learn from it and plan your next chunk of work. So I think that is the main shortcoming of all these UIs. They let you do a ton of work, but then you're left in a very disoriented place. And it's hard to do sense making over all that work. And so I built this tool called Agent Kitchen, which gives me a much higher level view of all the work I've been doing with my agents across not just my repos, but just my home directory and other random directories on my computer in general. And that has helped me a lot. I've been using it a lot since I released it a couple of weeks ago. This is now my primary interface into all my Claude Code and Codex sessions. And I'm getting a ton of value from it because I get this global view of sessions across different repos and directories. And I can click and resume them and all that stuff. But even with this, I do wish for more, and I'll probably work on adding more features to this. This still isn't quite the high level synthesized sense making narrative that I want from my work. Ideally, I'd want a short piece of prose up here, which is almost like a paragraph or two of just plain natural language, which synthesizes what I got done in that repo or in that directory, perhaps with links off to those sessions so that if I click on them, I can resume those links. So things like that. Another very common UI glitch or UI feature that I wish all these agents had is some kind of map view off to the side. So often these agent chats will grow really long. They will have many, many turns between you and the agent, and you just have to scroll through them. You don't even have quick bookmarks to just your inputs or kind of a mini map like you know how in Visual Studio Code, if you have a very long file, you have a little mini map off to the side and you can get a global view of that file. So it's all these little UI annoyances which just basically treat agents as a wall of text that I wish we could get over. And that's partly what I'm trying to address with Agent Kitchen, though it is a very initial attempt. I'm going to be adding some more features. I did make a couple of other videos which make points similar to what I'm making in this video about why I built Agent Kitchen, what was the problem I was trying to solve. So overall, I think we are coming to a place where the UI UX elements of using agents are becoming the bottleneck in how effective we can be with agents. And I hope and I think this area will get or should get more attention because, yeah, the models are getting better, the harnesses, the agents are getting better, but I think we are at the point where we're now bottlenecked by the UX paradigm. All right, if you like content like this, consider subscribing, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Thank you.